Hi, it's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and today I thought I'd make some cards from leftover scrap pieces from another card making class. Um, the other night I did a card making class at my local art gallery, and we created panels, mixed media panels, uh, that look something like this. So with stencils and inks and doodling on them and that kind of thing. But when I cut them down to make them into cards, I had these leftover strips. So what I've done is I've put the leftover strips into my paper cutter and I've just cut them out. I didn't measure them. I just cut out smaller strips. And so the idea here is that I'm going to take a card backing, and this measures 4¼ by 5¼ and sorry, no, 4 by 5¼ because it's going to fit on a card base that measures 4¼ by 5½. And I'm just going to lay them on here, make them fit all over the place to create a card. And in fact, I've got some other ideas for using up these scraps to make several other types of cards. So I've already got this pile cut up, but how am I going to adhere them to the card base? Well, I could do it with matte medium. I could do it with a glue stick, but I want to get, pretty good coverage. I want it to stick down well, so I'm going to use my Xyron. If you don't know what a Xyron is a machine that allows you to put sticky on anything you run through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of these card bases and I'm just going to stick them here into my Xyron. Get 2 across. And I think I'll take 2 more for good luck. Just have to find another one here. Oops. A little cutter bar came off, but I'll put that back on later. Set that aside. And this is what they look like. Now, there's a protective plastic coating on top of this, and I'm just rubbing them around to get any of the glue that may stick to the edges off. And then I'm going to put this one aside for now. And I'm going to pick up this one. Peel that off. And this is sitting on a piece of wax paper. And when I peel these off, the other side will be covered with glue, evenly distributed. So I'm just going to now lay these down, and I'm not really going to think about it, and I'm not trying to necessarily get them lined up perfectly with the edges of the card. I let them overhang because I will come back later and trim those off. I'm just butting them up. I'm not letting them overlap. So if there's a little bit of the black cardstock shows up underneath, that's okay. And you can see this method is a lot faster than having to use a glue stick or matte medium. The only thing is, if you were to use a glue stick or wet glue, you would have a little bit of wiggle room. On here, I do not have any wiggle room. So once it's down, it's down. I'm not thinking too hard about any of this. Just getting them down. Now in this case, I'm just looking for one that might fit into this gap a little better. If they overlap a little bit, it's not going to be a big problem. Sort of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, now I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm just going to give it a good varnish. Make sure all my pieces are coming into contact with the adhesive. Then I'm going to flip it over and I take my scissors and I'm just going to cut off the excess. Now I'm just going to put those little pieces to the side because I'm going to make more cards. So I've got this. Now all I need is a base. And actually I'm thinking that maybe this would look better on a black base. And you know, I could take my ink, let me be right back. I just got some black archival ink. And I'm just going to go around the edge. It's just going to make it a little more finished. And then I can adhere that down. So I think I'm going to use double-sided tape for this. Let's get that out of the way. I could have used a glue stick. I could have run this again through the Xyron. You want it to stick well. And this is now, because it's got basically 2 layers of cardstock on it, it's a little heavier. So I want to make sure that it's going to stay well stuck to the background. And I'm just going to peel these off. And one of my tricks, if I can find it, since I don't have any nails, is to use a paper piercer to pull up this double-sided tape. Get my card base again. And so here's my finished card. Actually, it's not that finished yet because I can now use that as a base to put other things on top of this, which I think I will do in a few minutes. But then, what about if we take a base and do this again? Where's one of my stickies? And what we can do is, once we've made this base like we were doing before, we could take this and run it through our die cutting machine and cut out some shapes that we could use on our cards as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera here and I'm going to finish this piece and then I'll come back and show you what I mean. Okay, so I finished making another card base using the same method as I did with this first one, but this time I'm going to do some die cutting. So I've got one of my favorite dies, which is a Sizzix die by Tim Holtz which is the butterfly dual. It makes these two butterflies, and they'll fit just perfectly on this card. Now I can do it face down or face up. I think I'll do it face down. No, I think I'll do it face up. It doesn't really matter. Get that centered. We'll make our little sandwich here. And I'm just going to go off camera, off to the side here, and run this through my machine. Okay, so I've got my die cut out. Now, one thing I should have used a shim on this one. I'll cut it out pretty good. Now, don't throw that away. That you could use in another mixed media project. So we'll just put that over to the side. And here we have our two butterflies. Now, I could use these on this card. So it's sort of a tone-on-tone effect. I can use one of these on top of the other to give it a 3D effect. I think what I am going to do before I do anything else with it is I'm just going to go around the edges to give them a little bit more definition. And again, I'm just using the archival black ink. You don't have to use black. You could use any color that you wish. Okay, so I've done that. Now it's time to make a decision. Several decisions, actually. Do I want to use these on this card? I could, but they really kind of blend in too much in the background. I could also take the smaller butterfly and I could pop it up on the bigger one to make it more dimensional. It still doesn't show up here. But that's okay. Let's grab another card base. Let's grab some white cardstock. Now it's definitely going to show up on here, but I find this a little boring as a background. So what could I do? I've still got my strips over here, but I also have this piece that we cut out. Now what we could do is do sort of an inlay effect. So I could pop both of these up off of that surface, get rid of the white, put that on the background, and that's what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm just going to give this a little bit of a cleanup because I didn't really clean up the edges all that carefully because it was going to go through the die cutter, and it didn't really matter at the time that I had leftovers on the edges. But now that I've decided to use this piece, I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. And I think we should go around the edges of this. Now, I was using black before, but I'm going black on black. I use black on black here, but I think I'm going to change the color. So I'm going to grab, let's see, pick a color out of here that might show up. I'm going to see if I can find something that's in those pinky tones or red tones. Just grabbing my oxide inks right now, and there's Fired Brick. Let's try Fired Brick. Now I need an applicator for this. And here we go. And let's see how well this will show up. Yes, this looks like it's going to work very nicely. And I'm being fairly generous. I'm giving it a fairly wide border because I do want this to show up so it'll stand out from the back of the card. Oops. So let's see how this is looking on our base. Yep, that's going to work. Okay, so let's put some double-sided tape onto this piece. And we'll varnish my bone folder. Pull off the protective strips. And I'm just eyeballing it. Now that in itself is kind of nice, but we're going to add our butterflies. So I'm just going to bend the wings slightly on both of these. And you want to know something? I think we should add a little sparkle to this. So I've got out my Wink of Stella clear. Hopefully this one has some left in it. Just let me test it. Piece of scrap paper. Yep. And I'm just going to go all over the butterfly. It's not going to be a great amount, but it will just add a little bit of sparkle when the light hits this. I think it may be time to buy a new Wink of Stella. Just a tip, you can extend the life of your Wink of Stellas when you don't think there's anything left in it. These are basically a water brush, so you can unscrew it, pour in a little water, give it a shake, and you'll get a lot of that shimmer that has been sticking to the sides of the barrel. So that extends the life of your Wink of Stella. Okay, now I could add more bling to this. I could put some little gems or pearls or whatever onto the wings, but don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab my white glue for this. Just making a little room here. Things are getting a little cluttered up. Just going to put a bead of glue. I may put a bead of glue on here if I get this unstuck. Okay, it doesn't want to cooperate. Where's that little pin? Just get out my scrap paper for a minute to get this going. There we go. Okay, so now we have a dimensional card. So there we go. We created 2 cards from scraps left over from another project. I still have lots of pieces here left that I could do another card or 2 as well. Now on this card, what we can do is we can add some other embellishments. So I'll be right back. Okay, to finish off this card, I went through my stash and I found this little guy out of the Tim Holtz paper doll collection that I thought was kind of cute with his hat in his hand. And I'm going to add a little caption to the top And I found this also on a Tim Holtz word sticker. I had a lovely time. So this could be like a thank you note for a party or something you've been to. Itself, it doesn't really stand out. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to back it onto another one of these scraps that I cut. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to put a little bit of aging on it. So I've got out my Stays On Timber Brown, and it could be anything you want. I'm just doing this color because it's kind of a vintagey look and it goes with the picture. It's kind of a vintagey picture. So I'm just putting that around on this, and I'm going to center this onto this little strip here if I can. And to give it a little bit of a flare, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to make it into sort of a little banner. So I just cut here in the center and then from each side, and I'm just eyeballing it. And I'm going to do the edges of this as well, just to make it stand out a little bit from the background of the card. And I'm going to do this little guy as well. And I think I'm going to get out my pop dots here. Oops, forgot to put, don't throw this little plastic piece away that comes on Stays On, because it really helps to keep these from drying out, because they do dry out very quickly. So I've got some pop dots here, so I think I'm going to raise this piece. And I'm going to raise this little guy up as well. I'll use some of the smaller ones. For those areas that okay, so got those. All right, now get out my little paper piercing tool here. Get these backs off. If you have nails, this is not a problem, but I don't. So I find that this works very well. Now here's a little tip. I find sometimes these little sticky squares don't stay put. So to make sure that they adhere and stay, I just add a little drop of glue in the center of each of the squares. And this just makes sure that they don't fall off. So put that little guy right there. And the banner. Oops, forgot to do my glue thing. And there we have it. So that would make a great little thank you card for a party. And here we have the butterfly. So essentially, with the exception of the word label and this little guy, everything was made from scraps from another project. And I've still got lots of scraps left over that I could make a whole series of these cards. It's pretty fast, pretty easy, especially when you use a Xyron. But again, you don't have to use a Xyron. You can use double-sided tape, you can use wet glue, you can use a tape runner, whatever you have. So I hope this gave you some ideas with what to do with your scraps, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.